2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports have just blown the lid off and set the motorsports world ablaze on Wednesday, as they filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR in federal court in North Carolina. The two teams announced in a joint statement, "It's really happening this time, and this could get very messy." The action extended a drama that began when the two teams refused to sign the new charter agreement, which is scheduled to take effect after the 2024 season. Immediately, doubts emerged about whether 2311 and FRM would be eligible to compete next season after filing their case, and Fox's Bob Pockrass clarified any confusion. One of the new 2025 charter provisions is that the teams release NASCAR of antitrust claims. As part of the lawsuit, 2311 and Front Row are asking for a preliminary injunction that will allow them to compete as chartered teams in 2025 while still proceeding with the lawsuit, Pockrass stated. Clearly, 2311 and FRM are seeking to obtain a preliminary injunction that will allow them to compete in 2025, regardless of whether they sign the charter agreement. That would allow them to progress on the track while still fighting NASCAR off of it. In the lawsuit they filed on Wednesday, the two teams accused NASCAR and its CEO Jim France of unlawful monopolization of premier stock car racing in order to enrich themselves at the expense of the premier stock car racing teams. The France family and NASCAR are monopolistic bullies, the complaint claims, according to Jeff Gluck. And bullies will continue to impose their will to hurt others until their targets stand up and refuse to be victims. That moment has now arrived. Furthermore, the case derives from 2311 and Front Row's decision not to sign NASCAR's final charter proposal at Atlanta Motor Speedway last month. Teams have spent the previous 2 years negotiating an extension to the original 2016 charter agreement, which was set to expire on December 31st. Teams made requests, such as making charters permanent, which NASCAR declined to include in its plans. Charters in the current concept are not permanent franchises, as they are in other professional sports leagues. Teams can lose their charters if they perform poorly on the track or do not field their cars on a consistent basis. As a result, most racing teams lose money each year. The final proposal was submitted at 6 p.m. ET on Friday, September 6th. NASCAR handed teams a 6-hour ultimatum to sign, threatening to eliminate the charter system altogether for 2025 and beyond if they did not. Among the 15 Cup Series teams, only 2311 and Front Row remained. It remains to be seen whether 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are given their preliminary injunction, but it is clear that their battle with NASCAR is far from over, as they aim to revolutionize the way business is done in the sport, especially if you look into the statements from the teams. "The way NASCAR is run today is unfair to teams, drivers, sponsors, and fans," said co-owner Michael Jordan of 2311 Racing in a joint statement. This united complaint is the culmination of months of back and forth between the teams and NASCAR administration. "We share a passion for racing, the thrill of competition, and winning," read the joint statement. "Off the racetrack, we share a belief that change is necessary for the sport we love. Together, we brought this antitrust case so that racing can thrive and become a more competitive and fair sport in ways that will benefit teams, drivers, sponsors, and most importantly, fans." The announcement went on to accuse NASCAR of not being transparent, restricting competition, and dominating the sport in ways that unfairly benefit them at the expense of team owners, drivers, sponsors, partners, and fans. The France family has had complete ownership of the sport since its inception in 1948. Front Row Motorsport and 2311 provided a list of what they deemed anti-competitive activities by NASCAR leadership. Buying a majority of the premier racetracks that are exclusive to NASCAR races. Imposing exclusivity deals on NASCAR-sanctioned racetracks. Acquiring Automobile Racing Club of America, RK, the only notable stock car racing series competitor. Preventing teams from participating in any other stock car races while also retaining ownership over next-gen parts and cars. Forcing teams to buy their parts from single-source suppliers chosen by NASCAR. NBA icon Michael Jordan and three-time Daytona 500 winner Denny Hamlin launched 2311 Racing in 2020, while Bob Jenkins has owned Front Row Motorsports (FRM) since 2005. Each team operates 2 full-time cars, with FRM recently announcing ambitions to increase to 3, following an agreement to acquire a charter from the defunct Stewart-Haas Racing. In the complaint, 2311 indicates that they want to obtain a third charter for 2025 as well. The lengthy release detailed their next move as well. In the coming days, we will file a preliminary injunction to enable our teams to race in the next calendar year under the 2025 charter agreement while continuing to pursue our antitrust litigation. The filing will seek discovery from both NASCAR and Jim France related to their exclusionary practices and intent to insulate themselves from any competition. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports will seek treble damages for the anti-competitive terms that teams have been subject to under the 2016 charter agreement. But there's more to this story. As more facts are emerging from 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports' antitrust case against NASCAR. The lawsuit, in which 2311 and Front Row accused NASCAR and its CEO Jim France of unlawful monopolization of premier stock car racing in order to enrich themselves at the expense of the premier stock car racing teams, also explains why teams' revenue is lower than it could be in a competitive market, according to Fox Sports' Bob Pockris. Lawsuit claims teams' revenue is less than what they could get in a competitive market. BC. NASCAR owns majority of tracks, prohibits similar stock car races at any cup track. NASCAR requires teams to buy parts and pieces from specific vendors and wants control of team IP rights, Pockris said. 2311, Front Row lawyer Jeffrey Kessler blasts egregiously anti-competitive NASCAR in lawsuit statements. The take-it-or-leave-it offer from NASCAR included numerous one-sided, monopolistic economic terms that were far less than the teams would receive in a competitive market, according to the complaint. It did not provide a fair split of revenues so that the teams would have a chance to earn a reasonable return on their investment. It seized control over team intellectual property rights, to be used for NASCAR's benefit. Did not provide permanent charters so that the teams could realize value through permanent charter appreciation. It did not give teams the ability to resist unilateral NASCAR rules that increased team costs. And it did not give the teams any meaningful role in governance of the sport. It also imposed terms that would undermine the relationship between teams and drivers. Jeffrey Kessler, the attorney legally recruited by 2311 and Front Row, explained why they took a position and declined to sign the plan. In every antitrust case, the victims are taking what they can get, he added. A lot of the victims will continue to be victims until this wrong is righted. He added, "We filed this case and we expect to win this case. One way or another, stock car racing is going to change in this country for the better." The 2311 Racing Management also went in on NASCAR, stating that it's absolute nonsense the way it's set up right now. It's actually pretty simple in my opinion. When I look around, I see that the best and most competitive sports in the world understand that when teams thrive, fans benefit, and that everyone who invests in making the sport a success should share fairly in that success. With the right changes, we can certainly make that a reality in racing, Denny Hamlin said. Everyone knows that I have always been a fierce competitor, and that will to win is what drives me and the entire 2311 team each and every week out on the track. I love the sport of racing and the passion of our fans, but the way NASCAR is run today is unfair to teams, drivers, sponsors, and fans. Today's action shows I'm willing to fight for a competitive market where everyone wins, Michael Jordan followed up with. A true partnership, not dictatorship, is our goal. For over 2 years, I have dedicated myself to championing a more fair and transparent system within NASCAR, where we recognize the importance of the France family and the sanctioning body, but do what is best for all stakeholders. The charter that was forced on the teams with only hours' notice does not accomplish these objectives. The new charter is an attempt to further marginalize the team's voices in the sport and consolidate control and the power in the hands of the France family for their sole benefit. I hope our actions today lead to a future of collaboration for this great sport we love. Curtis Polk, 2311 Racing's co-owner, said, "I have been part of this racing community for 20 years and couldn't be more proud of the Front Row Motorsports team and our success. But the time has come for change. We need a more competitive and fair system where teams, drivers, and sponsors can be rewarded for our collective investment by building long-term enterprise value, just like every other successful professional sports league." Bob Jenkins, Front Row Motorsports owner, ended with, "So, what do you think? Do they stand a chance against NASCAR and the France family? And if not, will they even obtain their preliminary injunction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below."